Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is my honor to host this panel with this incredible gentleman who are really outspoken voices and examples for African American men and all men of color out there, with Michael Smith and Baron Davis. Of course, neither one of them needs an introduction, so that's the best part. My name is Marley. Like you guys just heard, I'm a reporter for ESPN, and I mostly cover baseball, but obviously a big fan of Baron Davis, who was with the Knicks. And I live here in New York City. And we are, as you guys know, in the middle, in the hot spot of this entire pandemic and of the protests that are happening today. And these very knowledgeable gentlemen are going to address some of these issues. And the first question I would like to pose it to you, Michael, in this moment. What do you think are the major factors or the powers that are contributing to create this movement that we are seeing on the streets today?
Thank you, and thank you to the organizers for having this conversation. You know, the APA put out a statement a few days ago that said we are not only in a global pandemic health-wise, we are in a global race pandemic. And so the outcry that we're seeing, the uprising, the upheaval that we're seeing, the anger and the anguish that we're seeing is because America still has not dealt with some of its original wounds that have caused too many people that look like Baron and me and our families to be chronically left behind, to be chronically left out of opportunity, to be chronically facing a situation where they're not realizing their full potential. And the truth is, if you are a young man of color in this country, a young woman of color, a black man or woman growing up in this country, from the time you are likely born into a poor community. You are likely born into underfunded schools, over police communities. And the outcomes, whether they are health or economic, are frightening, are difficult, and are challenging. And we have not done enough to face those real facts and make sure that we not only put together nice programs, but really address the systemic barriers that stand in the way of our brothers and sisters and our sons and daughters.
Baron, when Michael is talking about addressing the systemic barriers and we are seeing all these people protest down on the street, do you believe that COVID-19, what do you think is the effect? Has it hindered? Is the quarantine helping? Is the quarantine actually hindering all these protests? What is your stand on what coronavirus has done for this moment, this historical moment in time?
Well, I think, once we realized that we were in a pandemic, right, a little too late, we start to realize that this pandemic sees no race, sees no color, sees no gender, sees no creed, sees no ideals, right, no age. And for the first time, I think the world had to stop and do a lot of self-reflection. And you have to live with your problems. You have to live with yourself. You have to live with your hate. You have to live with your angst. And not having a job, right? Not really knowing if there is a future. I personally believe that people, let's take America, especially Americans, finally got to feel what it feels like to be black, right? In America. And, once they saw George Floyd under that knee, everybody could relate to him as a human being. And you start to see a multitude of different people of different races outside of the black community, but the black community saying this happens to us all the time. And now that everybody's in quarantine and they slowed down, and know that one, not only is this unfair, but you have a moral compass, right? That's sitting right in your face and is saying, is this humanly right? Right? Is our country right? And that's why you see, I think COVID kind of made us deal with a lot of our issues and a lot of our problems, and helped us recognize that we could all be gone off of this planet, right? No matter who you are. And then I think from that, now we're starting to see, the power, right? Now you're starting to see the connection because people are starting to realize that we're more alike than we are disalike.
When you talk about all these powerful protests and in the ambience of the coronavirus and in this environment, Baron, but do you believe that they would have been as strong, as significant, as covered by the media if we were not in a pandemic?
I do not. And I'm sure Michael can attest to this. It's, everybody's at home, right? If this was happening and no COVID, people would be going on in their daily lives, chiming in, right? I don't think that you would see so much cohesion. And the fact that, people have been in the house in quarantine for, well over a month or two. Um, but, the media would have kind of just presented it and then looked for the next story, right? And so because there's no activities or anything going on, it's forced the media to deal with all the big major issues that are going to haunt us as a people.
Thank you, Baron. Michael, when we talk about change, it requires many, many levels. And one of the things that we've seen in the United States, especially, is the problems with gun control. And I thought that after Sandy Hook, things were going to change. They were absolutely going to change. And then we keep saying massacre after massacre or mass shooting after mass shooting, that things don't change. So then how do we sustain this momentum? How do brown and white people and people of all colors and black people and everybody gets together to sustain this momentum to actually bring change and it doesn't stay in lip service?
Yeah, I first want to applaud, when you talk about the pandemic that we're living in, I want to applaud all of the young activists, all the allies, all ages, all races, who are putting themselves in harm's way, to raise their voices, to honor the memories of George and of Brianna and of way too many others. And it is important, and it is the idea of protest and civil disobedience is as old as this country is. And so I want to applaud that. The other thing, and I also want to applaud that this isn't the first time. We've seen this far too many other times, where our youngest generation has to be on the front lines of fixing problems that the generation before didn't fix.
Mm-hmm.
But what we also have to recognize is this is a marathon, not a sprint. This is Moses, Joshua generation transfer of work that's happening. This is looking ahead 20 years. This is not only rallying and protesting today, which is important, but looking to the next races that are coming up, the next people that you want to be in office. It's about looking at the strategies. Even when I think about the work that happens around campaigns, a lot of people get really excited about election day, but when it comes time to actually move people to action around specific policy reforms, not as many people are around. A lot of people are really excited about doing a walk or a march, but maybe not as many people are around for the ongoing sustained work. And so we really have to not only have a plan, have a commitment to be in this for the long run, but really thinking about all of the different ways through programs, through policies, through actions that we're going to sustain and really demand that we see the change that we need to see, because power does not give up that easy. White supremacism creeps into every single system that we touch. And we're going to have to actively put our shoulder to the stone if we're going to really make sure that it's dismantled.
We talk about, I'm supposed to be right now in Seattle with the Yankees. And one of the things that, as a Yankee, someone who covers the Yankees, and one of the things that in 1961, the only visit that Martin Luther King did to Seattle is one of the famous lines that sometimes gets misquoted about the time being ripe to do right. Now, how do we do right? What are the actions that you believe are more helpful out there? What can all citizens of any color, what are the most helpful actions at this moment right now? And what are the ones that hinder this process?
Well, we all saying what hinders us is people who are not sharing in the same intent and purpose. So the rioters, the people who, a lot of the negativity that you see when you see so much great things going on with this protest. Um, just speaking change, I think it's an economic thing, right? When you think about America, you think about the baselines of America. America is a corporation, and America is an institution, and America has institutions. The police force is an institution. College is an institution. Banks are an institution. Hospitals are institutions. And so, for us, I believe as an African American, right, we're institutionalized. And until we can reinstitutionalize our stuff, we have to start to build our own institution. And that's just not for African Americans. It's about this inclusive nature and this inclusive community of people and like-minded individuals that really want to make, systemic change, right? Because you can donate money to foundations, you can donate money, you can raise $100 million and have a fund donated towards minority investors or entrepreneurs, and you still won't see the effect. I think for us, it's really like thinking about the strategy strategy. Michael was saying, what's the 20-year goal, right? So where can we start now to start reinstitutionalizing ourselves, right? And then how can we hit these measurable goals by investing, right? Our time, our money, the resources, the education, and figuring out how to write our own shit, right? How to write and abide by our own institutional laws, our own minority cultural togetherness laws, right? That we can govern ourselves to have the opportunity to create a bigger economic ecosystem to really shortfall where we've been failed by government.
Michael, when Barron talks about these kind of doing things right and picking this correct helpful actions, what are those? What do you believe are the actions that we can take immediately? And maybe you can talk about maybe some of the organizations that you support, that actually believe in those goals.
The first thing I think that's important is charity starts at home. We all have to look around our dinner tables. We have to look at our churches. We have to look at our social groups, and we have to see, who are we spending time with? We have to look at our reading list. Are we spending time in echo chambers, hearing from the same people about the same opinions? Have we looked at our own privilege? And we all carry it, and there's certainly white privilege that benefits Americans in a way that they never had to think about. I'm not that old, and I grew up in a busing program in Massachusetts that was designed to integrate a community where most people would have never even had to integrate or interact with a person of color. And so, one, you have to start there. And if you go to Obama.org, we've created a website called Anguish and Action, and it has readings that folks should be looking at, learning from the authors and really looking at what it means to be an ally, what it means to have courageous conversations. So start at home. Don't always think about what I have to do to go outside. Have those conversations within your own group. The second thing that you can do is making sure that you're following and supporting organizations that are doing this work and doing it with not only talking about it online, not only tweeting about it, but on the ground and taking action. And if you go to our website, you see we've posted organizations like Color of Change and Black Futures Labs and the Movement for Black Lives and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Learn about those organizations. Learn about their work. Ask how you can be helpful. There are ways that you can be helpful by getting in the street, and there are ways that you can really be helpful by being at home. And then, as Barron said, put your money where your mouth is. Put your time where your mouth is. You can volunteer if you're a lawyer to help get some of these folks out of jail. You can volunteer to move social media messaging. You can volunteer to write. You can petition. And then you can use your dollars. On our website, we have memorial pages. We also have bail funds that are going to be really important as we're seeing the shameful reaction in way too many peaceful protesters who found themselves arrested. So start at home and then put your money in your pocket where your mouth is and make a difference and make a commitment to do it, not just for tomorrow, not to just be seen, but to do it for the long term. And if I could just also add, if you run an institution, don't just write a check at home to an organization. Go check your institution. I saw someone who put out a tweet that said, if you have more Black Matters tweets than you have Black people on your board, then you have a problem. Check yourself. Check your institution. Tear it down. Change those institutions.
For sure.
Well, we have to, Barron, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to go there with you. It is beyond.
I wanted to echo. I just wanted to echo the same thing. It's if you are running institutions, or you are running funds, or are you, I've had one of the companies I've invested in, white males, a white male company, and we had a 30-minute conversation on how can they put their company in the front line? How can they position themselves as this next generation who don't see color, right? But also they want to participate in the movement. And so I think that, what Michael's saying, just piggybacking off of that, is like, we need to find the people who are really down, right? Then we have to listen to them. They have to listen to us. And then the best solution wins, right? And so we're at a moment and a time in our country where we need to be solution oriented, right? And we need to create building blocks to create a foundation for the future. And so, resources, financial resources, and not just sitting back and blindly, investing money or giving money to organizations, and you have not, redefined who you are and what your spirit is. So that's still a part of perpetuating, what's going on.
I want to know from both of you, I'll start with Michael. Can you tell me, because I'm practical, right? I grew up in Puerto Rico. I am an immigrant. I know exactly what it is like, right, to go through what we're all going through right now. So, Michael, give me one practical action that every single person who is listening to this today can take to take forward this movement, can take to actually finally maybe achieve some sort of equality, and the kind of equality that we're looking for that has to be beyond a hashtag of Black Lives Matter. It is a movement. It is something that is deserving. What do we do? What is one practical action that everyone can take?
I think the best thing for folks to do is find an organization home that will educate you, that will enrich you, and that will put you to action. If you go to obamafoundation.org or, obama.org, and you will find that we give you multiple options. Color of Change is one of the leading organizations where you can sign a petition, but they will continue to send you actions. And so find an organization that's been there, connect with them, support them, and be committed to this work in the long term. I'll also say there's a lot of conversation about policing right now, and there are things that we can do and reforms that can happen. We're doing a town hall with President Obama at 5 p.m. today that the entire world is invited to, Attorney General Holder and other leaders, and I encourage you to join that to find out what are the specific strategies and action steps that we need to take in order to reform this broken policing system.
Baron?
That's great. I just echo education.
Yeah.
And then I also echo live outside your comfort zone, right? Practice living outside of your norms, of your privilege, right? And connect, right? If we're going to be about this, if we're going to be about change, we have to think that Black lives more than matter, right? We have to think that all lives more than matters, right? And we have to start to realize that we are human beings, right? So Black people are human beings. Black people are beautiful human beings, right? Hispanic people are beautiful human beings, right? We have to start to re-engineer the lens that we're looking at our fellow human beings through. And we have to get out our comfort zone and use our words, right, to get to know people, use our learning capacity, right, to better understand them. And I would say that would be my point is get out and get uncomfortable.
And for you two gentlemen, we are at the end of our session. Obviously, it has flown by with all this interesting, topics that we've addressed. But I really want to hear from you as African American men to tell the people out there. It's we have a couple of minutes to do this, but it's like tell people out there, what do we do with this anguish? What do we do with this anger? How do we put it to work into policy? Michael.
I'll just close with saying we've got to confront it. We've got to look at it. Congressman Lewis talks about this way that we've got to get in good trouble and we've got to get in the way. He says oftentimes that he talks to people that say, I'm standing on your shoulders, and he'll say, get off my shoulders and get to work. And if you look at people like them that had to face batons and dogs, most of the time, we don't have to face that. It is our job to be committed to this work for life, to recognize each other's humanity, and to be committed to making a difference each and every day of our lives in the way that we walk, the way that we talk, and the way that we spend money.
Baron, if you'd be so kind.
That was great, Michael. I would say, for me on the entrepreneur side, right, and always been an athlete entrepreneur is, we have to start thinking about macroeconomics, microeconomics, start thinking about local economics, local funds. My business is based in investing in entrepreneurs of all color, creed, gender, and creating, a management entity that helps them become successful. So for us, we're not a big fund, but we're about, helping someone get started, helping them get out of their seed series and in a place where they can be funded. So the more we can actually do, the more we can do as a community, right, to start funding these entrepreneurs and taking chance on these entrepreneurs is going to be beneficial to the whole economy and the ecosystem that we want to build.
Thank you so much, Baron. Really appreciate it. We dedicate this, of course, to the memory of just too many Black lives, right, that we've lost, especially in this case, to George, Brianna, and Ahmad. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.